The young and the restless spoilers shock. The countryside of southern France rolled by in serene stillness, its golden hills and lavender fields unfurling like a painting under the late afternoon sun. A private luxury train, sleek and immaculate, carved its path through this dreamscape, carrying within its mahogany-lined carriages the most powerful bloodline in Genoa City: Victor, Nikki, Nick, Sharon, Billy, Audra, Lily. All gathered by invitation, or perhaps manipulation, in the name of an exclusive celebration orchestrated by one enigmatic man, Aristotle Dumas. To most of them, Dumas was just a name, a mysterious billionaire with a taste for theatrics. To others, he was a rumor wrapped in power and anonymity. But as the train pushed farther from the world, reality would unravel, and a new nightmare would rise from the shadow of an old name: Adam Newman. The car shimmered with elegance. Champagne flowed, silver trays glistened with caviar, imported cheeses and rare delicacies adorned the table like a feast for kings. Sharon sat near the window, nervously sipping water, unable to ignore the knot in her stomach. She glanced at the champagne but made no move to touch it. Recent trauma had taught her caution. Her poisoning not long ago remained a vivid, unshakable memory. Victor, however, was in rare form. Laughing, analyzing the train's architecture, scoffing at the welcome note left by their elusive host. "Who does this guy think he is?" he muttered, reading the ornate script. Nikki admired the label on the champagne bottle, amused. "If you finish that, Victor, you might be ready to take on an entire country." She laughed lightly, brushing her fingers along his sleeve. Yet something uneasy lingered beneath the surface. Nick, ever the skeptic, was already eating, biting into expensive canapés while making sarcastic remarks about the billionaire's bottomless bank account. "How much do you think he makes conjuring gold out of smoke?" he quipped, nudging Sharon. Then it happened. It began with Victor. His fingers twitched. His glass slipped from his hand, shattering across the table. His body jolted once, and then collapsed with a sickening weight against the polished surface. Nikki screamed his name and tried to rise, but her knees buckled as her world tilted violently. She collapsed beside him, her mouth open but silent. Nick gasped, his hand clutching his chest, confusion and horror etched across his face as his body fell backward. Billy groaned and dropped sideways off his chair. Audra's eyes went wide, and she barely had time to reach for Lily before the two of them went down like dominoes. Within seconds, the luxury car turned from sanctuary to graveyard. Sharon stood frozen, her pulse thudding wildly. "No," she whispered, "no, no." She staggered backward, unable to process what was unfolding. Poison. It had to be. She recognized the signs. This wasn't illness. It was design. The lights dimmed, shadows stretching long and predatory across the bodies now strewn across the cabin. Then a door at the far end creaked open. A figure stepped forward, dressed in a tailored black suit, a silver mask glinting under the low light. Calm, methodical, almost ceremonial, the figure walked through the carnage like a king surveying a battlefield he had already won. At the center of the room, he stopped. With a slow, deliberate motion, he removed the mask. Adam Newman's face emerged. Sharon gasped, stumbling backward as if she had been struck. Her voice cracked with disbelief. "Adam." He smiled. Not the sad, searching smile she had known once. No. This was different, predatory, victorious, chilling. "Hello, Sharon," he said, his voice smooth. "Lovely to see you again. I must say, you wear confusion better than most." "You did this," she whispered. "Why? Why would you?" "Because," he interrupted, voice low, "it's time they understood what they created." Sharon shook her head. "This is madness. This isn't who you are." He laughed softly. "No? Then perhaps you never really knew me." He gestured to the fallen bodies. "Tell me, who here ever saw me as anything more than the mistake? The liability? The son Victor Newman never wanted, never acknowledged except when it served him. He walked to Victor's still form, crouching beside him with something that bordered on tenderness, but there was no softness in his eyes. He made me in his image, then denied me. Punished me. Manipulated me. But Aristotle Dumas? Oh, Aristotle has no father. No shackles. No past. He turned back to Sharon. Just a plan. A perfect one. Sharon trembled. You became someone else to destroy your family? I became who they always feared I'd become, he said coldly. I stopped asking for a seat at the table and decided to burn the table down. The train kept moving, its rhythm now sinister. Sharon looked around desperately, hoping someone, anyone, would stir. But the silence was consuming. What now? She asked. You're just going to let them die? Adam studied her face, curious. Would that be justice, Sharon? Or would that make me like him? He looked away. They're not dead. Yet. But that's entirely up to them, and you. He turned, walking toward a control panel hidden behind a sliding wall. Sharon followed, heart pounding. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not like them. No, he said, pausing. You're not. But you stayed. Through everything. And you believed in them. Even when they didn't deserve it. He faced her, gaze steady. So I brought you here to watch. To witness what truth looks like when it's unmasked. Sharon's voice trembled. This is revenge, not truth. No, he said, softer now. This is liberation. Suddenly, a sharp groan echoed through the car. Someone stirred. Nikki's hand twitched. Then Billy gasped, coughing violently. Sharon moved instinctively, rushing to Nikki's side. She's alive, she cried. They're waking up. Adam turned, frowning. It's earlier than expected. He moved quickly to a panel and flipped a switch. I suppose the antidote in the ventilation system worked faster than I calculated. Sharon turned toward him, stunned. Antidote? I never intended to kill them, Adam replied. Just show them what the edge feels like. What helplessness tastes like. Let them live with it, wake up knowing they're not untouchable. That their empire can fall. That I can take everything from them and still choose to let them live. Victor groaned softly, barely conscious. Nikki opened her eyes, dazed and shaking. Sharon looked at Adam with equal parts fear and fury. You drugged your family. You nearly killed them. But I didn't, Adam said, voice cool. And now they'll never forget that I could have. He turned, placing the silver mask back over his face. Goodbye, Sharon. You'll see them through the rest. The doors opened behind him, and he vanished into the next car. The silence on the train was deafening as the masked figure disappeared into the next car, leaving behind a room full of gasping breaths, flickering pulses, and the echo of betrayal. Sharon clutched Nikki's hand, still trembling, while her eyes darted toward Victor's pale face, watching for any movement, any sign that he was still tethered to life. Billy coughed violently, rolling onto his side, and Nick groaned, attempting to sit up. The antidote had begun its work. But slowly, unevenly, like light filtering through the cracks of a sealed tomb. Sharon's mind was racing. Adam. Or rather, the man who claimed to be Adam. She couldn't believe it. She refused to. Adam Newman was many things, flawed, angry, vengeful. But he wasn't a murderer. Not of his own blood. Not like this. The look in his eyes, the cold detachment, it wasn't the man she had once known. It wasn't even the man Genoa City feared. It was someone else. A memory flickered in her mind. A conversation in Chancellor Park, months ago. Adam had mentioned a man, someone he had met during his time away. A powerful man with connections all over Europe, someone who claimed to understand the pain of being the outsider in a legacy you didn't ask for. At the time, Sharon had dismissed it as one of Adam's usual flirtations with darkness. But now it resurfaced with terrifying clarity. What if that man wasn't just a passing shadow? What if he was Aristotle Dumas? And what if he had taken Adam, broken, emotionally volatile, desperate for purpose, and turned him into a pawn? The idea chilled her more than the poison ever could. Victor groaned again, this time louder. Sharon turned, placing a hand on his chest. "Victor, stay with me," she whispered. His eyelids fluttered. Nick, pale but conscious, muttered something unintelligible. Nikki, always fragile but fierce, reached for Victor's hand even as her limbs trembled with weakness. Then, an electronic screen mounted above the cabin doors flickered to life. Static buzzed. The image cut in slowly, grainy at first, then sharpened to reveal a face no one had seen before. A man in his late 40s, with chiseled features, icy eyes, and a chilling calmness. He leaned toward the camera as if savoring the moment. "Good evening," he said, voice precise, emotionless. "My name is Aristotle Dumas. I suspect you've been entertained." Sharon stood, her hands balling into fists. If that's Dumas, then who was? But she already knew the answer. The Adam they saw might have worn the mask, but this was the voice pulling the strings. Dumas continued. "Before you leap to conclusions, allow me to clarify. No one has died, yet. The substance you ingested is a paralytic neuroagent. Temporary. Reversible. Unless, of course, one resists the process." He smiled slightly. "Then things get unpredictable." On screen, he folded his hands. This was never about murder. This was about collapse. About fear. About showing the mighty just how fragile they are. You have ruled Genoa City with arrogance. You buried secrets, corrupted institutions, shattered lives, and all the while assumed immunity. Today, that illusion ends. Victor struggled to raise his head, teeth clenched. "You bastard," Dumas chuckled. "You recognize your reflection, don't you, Victor? After all, we're not so different. You built an empire on fear. I'm merely reminding you what it feels like." Sharon stepped forward. "Where's Adam? What have you done to him?" Dumas's smile faltered, just briefly. "Ah. Mr. Newman. Your dear Adam has proven quite useful. Guilt-ridden. Isolated. Searching for redemption in all the wrong places. It was almost too easy to shape him into what I needed, a symbol. A vessel. A face the world would already mistrust." Nikki gasped softly, eyes wide with horror. "You used him," Dumas nodded. "I gave him a choice. He thought he was saving you from yourselves. He thought a little fear would break your toxic cycle. He never knew how far I intended to go." The screen went black. Sharon felt her knees weaken again. Not because of poison. But because of the truth. Adam hadn't betrayed them. He had tried to stop the fire by lighting a controlled blaze, only to find himself engulfed in an inferno far beyond his control. Victor, now able to speak in broken whispers, rasped, "We have to find him." Nick sat up fully now, blood returning to his face. "We have to stop this guy before he makes Adam do something worse." Billy cursed under his breath. "Or before he kills him for good." Audra, barely conscious, muttered, "He's a puppet. And someone just cut the strings." Sharon turned toward the window, watching the trees blur past as the train sped forward. But she no longer felt like they were moving through France. No. They were barreling into a war, one of legacy, of identity, of blood. And Adam was at its very center, teetering between salvation and total ruin. One thing was clear. If they didn't get to him first, Dumas would finish what he started. And Adam would die, not as a villain, but as the most tragic Newman of them all. The luxury train hummed beneath their feet as it began its slow, ominous roll forward. The countryside outside had not changed, golden fields, ancient vineyards, the illusion of peace. But within the private car, tension shimmered like a blade in sunlight. Nikki sat stiffly, her hand wrapped around a half-empty flute of untouched champagne. Her eyes, distant and unreadable, finally shifted toward Victor. "You don't think he's some kind of criminal, do you?" she asked, her voice hushed, almost as if afraid Dumas could hear them through the walls. "What if this is all blood money? What if everything he's built came from the ruins of people like us?" Sharon, seated across from her, looked up with an expression that mixed logic and dread. "If he is who he claims to be, maybe it's not blood money. Maybe it's family money. Maybe he's tied to someone we've wronged. Someone we forgot. Someone we buried." Victor scoffed quietly but didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, jaw tight, mind clearly turning. Then he said, with chilling certainty, "No. Dumas isn't a thief. He's something worse. He's a man who climbed to the top without needing to steal from us. That's what makes him dangerous. That's what makes him unpredictable. Because we don't know the rules he plays by." Nick leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "Wait. Are you saying you know who he really is? You've met him before?" There was a pause. All eyes turned toward Victor. But before he could respond, the side doors opened, and in walked Sally Spectra, fiery, elegant, unapologetically bold. Followed closely by Billy Abbott, who carried his usual cocktail of smugness and poorly concealed suspicion. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Awkward glances were exchanged. Sharon sat back a little. Nikki's lips tightened. Victor didn't move, but the air around him froze several degrees colder. Billy, ever the provocateur, broke the silence with a half-smirk. "So, has Dumas made his grand entrance yet? Or are we still playing appetizer roulette?" Victor didn't answer him. Instead, he stared straight ahead, clearly unimpressed. Billy chuckled at his own discomfort. "Come on, old man. Aren't you even curious what this billionaire mystery man has cooked up for us? Personally, I'm dying to know if it's going to be another corporate exposé, or maybe he just plans to humiliate you in front of everyone. Wouldn't that be a treat?" Victor's response was sharp as a whip. "The only thing that will be revealed tonight is that you're still a useless bastard with no vision." Sally exhaled softly, clearly regretting joining this ride. Sharon gave her a brief sympathetic look. Nikki rolled her eyes but said nothing. Billy shrugged, unfazed. "Touché." He turned to Victor again, poking at the wound. "But you have to admit, this Dumas guy? He has style. Private train, custom champagne, invitations wrapped in secrecy, it's like a Bond villain with a vendetta. You sure you're not in over your head?" Victor gave him a hard glare but said nothing. The tension between them stretched like wire. Then Billy, in an almost careless tone, asked, "By the way, how's Cole?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "Why do you care?" Billy grinned. "Because if you're here, someone has to manage the miserable herd you've left behind in Genoa. Someone's gotta clean up after the legacy games." Nick leaned forward, his voice low and loaded. "You're not exactly the guy I'd nominate for cleanup duty, Billy." Before the sniping could escalate, the sound of the train's wheels began to grow louder, steadier, as the locomotive officially pulled out of the private French terminal. They were in motion now, rolling toward an uncertain destination controlled by a man no one could claim to fully understand. Sharon glanced around. "Where's Phyllis?" she asked suddenly. Sally blinked. "She's not here yet?" Everyone looked around. Her seat remained empty. Billy muttered under his breath. "Of course. Leave it to Red to make a dramatic late entrance." But Sharon didn't laugh. Something in her gut stirred uneasily. No, she said softly. This isn't like her. She would have made sure everyone knew she arrived. Something's wrong. Victor finally looked toward the empty chair, frowning. We were told she'd be on board. He stood, walking toward the bar, his mind clearly ticking again. Find the conductor. Now. Billy turned to him with raised brows. So. You're ready to walk into Dumas' lair without backup? Victor poured a drink, ignoring the question for a moment. Then he said calmly, I'm not walking into anything, Billy. I'm already inside it. The difference is, Dumas thinks I'm playing by his rules. He turned back to the group, eyes steeled, the weight of decades of war and business behind them. What he doesn't know is that I don't wait for traps to close. I set them myself. Billy exhaled, half nervous, half impressed. So you do think this is a trap? I don't think anything, Victor said. I know it. The train pushed farther into the countryside, cutting across rivers and hills, leaving behind the world they knew and rolling straight toward a reckoning. Phyllis was missing. Adam's role remained a mystery. And Aristotle Dumas? He was no longer just a name. He was a storm on rails, waiting to strike. And none of them, no matter how rich, how powerful, how dangerous, were ready.